Hello, welcome back. It has been a while since I put out a video, so kind of been a little bit busy with Jade Regent, the adventure path from Pathfinder. I've been kind of heavily involved with that, with homebrewing, different unique mechanics with that game, and kind of swarmed now with a lot of different modules that I'm introducing to our gaming group. Such as Dragon's Demand, the Ruby Phoenix Tournament, the Witch War Legacy. So I had a lot of work I purposely put in front of myself to lengthen our campaign so that we can continue the adventures that go after Book 6 that are in the back of the book. So I figured I'd at least put out a video for a homebrew race, the Kappa. And just to kind of start this off, I've been working with these mechanics for a while as far as trying to make a humanoid turtle race. I've been working on this for about a year now, trying to come up with something. And I came up with a few things with turtles and such. I've seen some things out there with Kappas, and there was a D&D creature called a Toidle, something like that. So I've looked at a couple of those for inspiration, and there was one that I made which was called a Shell Folk. You know, I was thinking about Rat Folk and Cat Folk, so hey, Pathfinder version, Turtle Folk, or I mean, Shell Folk. But that brought a little bit of sort of a question as, well, why are they called shell folk? It's just their shell, because now I'm thinking, is it a crustacean? Is it some sort of crab creature? So I got a lot of questions about that as far as why did I choose shell folk, and it seemed that that term kind of defined a broad range of perhaps crustacean-like creatures, and really shouldn't have been tagged on something such as a turtle. So I kind of debated that for a while. I've changed the stats on these. Went from, at one point they were medium creatures, and then I kind of, a lot of people wanted me to stick with the medium size, but then I kind of thought of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and that kind of felt a little weird. Of course, I like them. I watch with my kids and stuff. I used to watch it. I had the action figures and such, but that brand was just something I couldn't get away from if I made them medium sized. So I went back to small size, and because I'm playing Jade Regent right now, I'm the GM in that campaign. We're finally getting exposed to a lot of the Oriental themes. Book 4 is the big start of all that, and you're dealing with these unique races that you can introduce, or things that will be introduced. Things like Tanukis, Kitsune, the Naga creatures, a couple other different things in there. A lot of it with Japanese mythology and such things like that. So I really decided to take this back to its roots. That kind of pay a homage to the Asian sort of theme. And since I'm kind of doing things, introducing things to our players such as Kitsune and all this kind of stuff, why not keep it that kind of a theme, since the Kappa is one that kind of hails from the region of Tianzia. So I figure I'm going to base it more around this, just because I want it to be a Pathfinder option. So kind of going on, I went with most of the stats in here, but also with some third-party publishers, resources, kind of changed up the wording, changed up the mechanics, switched a few things out, wrote some of my own stuff in there. So this has been kind of a labor of love for me, just because I spent almost a year on this. Of going back and forth with it. It's kind of a baby of mine, so I'm going to introduce it to you, see if it's something that you would like to introduce in your game, or you can modify it and make it how you feel would best suit your world. So what I did was went with the Kappa, and it's a Monstrous Humanoid. 3 racial points on that. You're going to find it's going to come to a total of 17 racial points, so it's a advanced race. The size is small. Base speed or slow, just like in the B series stats. They have a 20-foot speed. Ability score modifiers, I went with the standard version for +2 to Dex, -2 to Intelligence, and then +2 to Wisdom. So there's no cost on that. Languages standard. Basically, you want to have them speak Common and Aquan, and then if they have higher intelligence scores, it could be Draconic, maybe Terran, and a few others that you would deem appropriate, maybe even Tian. So, racial traits now. We get into the defense side of the racial traits. Just like Kappas, they have energy resistance, acid 5, and cold 5. Natural armor, it's a weighted cost of 2, so they're going to get a natural armor of +1 due to their shell. And you'll see because of their size, they're going to get a +1 as well. So you really don't want to increase the natural armor up too much. Originally, I had made it like a +3, and it was just kind of ridiculous and overpowered when I made them medium size. So I kind of backed away from that. I did a homebrew version now, the hide and shell, which I will get to. That was racial point cost of 3. Movement racial traits, I gave them a swim speed, just like the Kappa. It's supposed to be 2 racial points, but I went with powerful swimmer as well to give them an extra 10 feet for a total of 40 feet for swim speed. So there's that. As far as the advanced traits, I gave them claws, since Kappas do have claws. Originally they had a bite as well, but I took that out, since Kappas do not have a bite. Since it's racial traits, Darkvision, Monstrous Humanoids already get this, so there's no costs to that. Weakness racial traits, the head bowl. It's a feature with the Kappa. They have a sort of basin atop their head that contains water, either from their home river or lake, or from a source nearby. Sometimes they'll even carry something in, like maybe a flask or some sort of container. If they ever have their head tipped willingly or unwillingly, pinned during a grapple, and the water is emptied out, they become immobile and staggered. They cannot move from that spot on their own. The empty head bowl has to be refilled with water, so they can recover from that condition immediately. I thought that was very appropriate for a turtle race, especially going with a T&Zia sort of a feel to it. And then lastly, the other racial traits I would put on there would be Amphibious. Since this is a aquatic Monstrous Humanoid, so that's 2 racial points there. So yeah, that's what I got. Kind of went through this a little fast here. I'm kind of not listing out all the page numbers, just because you've seen my videos before with the homebrew, so you buy it by this time now. If you are following it, if you do have that book, you kind of know where everything's at. But for those that are new, checking this out for the first time, or for those that aren't necessarily going to follow all this stuff, I'll put in the description field on the video the full stats, as well as a link to my Google document for this. The document is Kappas of Golarion. I made it a player companion book just because I add a lot of different feats and archetypes, the starting ages, weights and such I put on there. So just to kind of go back into the homebrew parts of it, the hide and shell. As a move action, a Kappa may retract their extremities into their shell. This allows them to gain a DR 5 bludgeoning. It also allows for 50% concealment from range attacks. So when they use this ability, they immediately fall prone, drop anything that they were holding, and any item that isn't directly attached to their skin that would fall as well. While they are in this form, they cannot make attacks, use items, or cast spells unless it's going to be a verbal only spell, then which of course they can do that. But they must remain in this form for at least one complete round. To come out of their shell, they must spend another move action, which all this does not provoke an attack of opportunity. So you can decide whether you like that, if you want to modify it where if it's not a move action, maybe it's a full round action, or if it does provoke an attack of opportunity, or if you don't like the amount of concealment on that, or if you want to change the damage reduction on that, have at it. And just talk about some alternate racial traits that I introduced to this. Maybe the Kappa, or if you're making a turtle humanoid race, maybe they don't hail from Japanese culture. Maybe they aren't in Tianzia. What if you're doing a Katapesh, or Syrian, or Quadria, or some sort of desert theme? Well, or you can introduce the Snapping Turtle, which is a alternate racial trait. I gave it a weighted cost of 3 racial points, basically. Some Kappa derive from the Snapping Turtle with a more pronounced beak-like mouth, and receive a natural bite attack, dealing 1d4 damage. That damage code is listed in the bestiary on page 302, I believe, where it tells for their approximate size, the approximate amount of damage they would do, based on that bite attack. The bite is a primary attack or a secondary attack if the creatures wield manufactured weapons. In addition, the shell is more rigid and functions as armor spikes for the purpose of grapple. Commonly with snapping turtles and such, they do have very rigid, very pronounced bony type with their shells. So you can add that, and of course with the snapping like beak. So this trait completely replaces Amphibious because they cannot breathe underwater. So instead of that, they would gain Hold Breath, which Kappa can hold their breath for a number of rounds equal to 4 times their Constitution score before risking the effects of drowning or suffocation. So just some notes on that. The Kappa's total racial points then would go up to 18 instead of 17, because you're adding a bite for 1 racial point. You're adding the armor spikes for 1 racial point. The armor spike is not listed anywhere in the advanced race guide, so that's just something I put a weighted cost on and homebrewed myself. The Hold Breath is in there, that's 1 racial point. And that's a total of 3, and you just subtract that from the Amphibious of 2. So next, the other alternate racial trait for Kappas is the Desert Strider, making this more of a desert sort of a theme or hot climate. Some Kappa derive from the tortoise and receive a +4 racial bonus on Constitution checks and Fortitude saves to avoid fatigue and exhaustion, as well as any other ill effects from running, forced marches, starvation, thirst, hot or cold environments. This racial trait replaces Swim and Amphibious. I did some research on the tortoise, and they can't swim. If they get too far out, they can drop like a rock and drown. They can't breathe underwater. They have been known to kind of get into water, but keep their head above the surface and at least be able to have some of their somewhat limbs, kind of move them or guide them around, but they can't actually swim. So instead of that, they do gain a burrow speed of 20 feet. So they gain that ability. Since tortoises do burrow into the dirt, they are quite good at it. So the racial point cost for this would be 16 points rather than 17. I added the Desert Runner for 2 racial points, the Burrow for 3, and you just take away 3 for the Swim, 1 for the Powerful Swimmer, and then Amphibious of 2. So that brings your racial point cost down by 1 after you kind of swapped all those features out. So this is more of a desert sort of type that you can feature in like Legacy of Fire, or for the other AP due out sometime later on in the next 7 months or so. Mummy's Mask, I think, is a new Pathfinder AP they announced just recently. So I'm trying to see if there's anything else I can talk about here. I just listed your age, weight, favored class options. It's really nice Kappa feats, such as using the shell and shield. Even improved natural armor if you do want to increase that natural armor up. Kappa crawling, where they can move around on the ground or on 2 feet. Swim and jump, where they can swim out of the water and sort of jump up into the air to make an attack on somebody on land. So there's some pretty cool stuff with that. They even made the Dragon Turtle bloodline for Kappa, where they become a sorcerer. They start to take on some of those unique characteristics of a Dragon Turtle, where they would eventually get that swim speed, even if they didn't have swim speed. They could breathe underwater if they couldn't do so. Their claws become stronger. They gain a breath weapon, just like the Dragon Turtle, where it's steam. It deals fire damage. Eventually their shell becomes an anti-magic shell, where they gain spell resistance. And eventually the power of a dragon, where they become immune to fire, sleep, paralysis. So there's some cool themes with that you can check out. I'll put all that on the description there, but I just thought that if I was going to make a turtle race, which I had been working on for quite a while, I need to make it Pathfinder themed, and the oriental flavor of it kind of finalized, sort of the seal of approval for me as far as making this race. It took way too much time than I had expected. I thought I would have just been done with this and kind of went on to the next one, but I just wasn't satisfied with it, and a lot of the other people I showed it to weren't really satisfied with it. I'm sure I'll still hear more things about it, so it's always possible for another revision to be made, but sorry that I was kind of away from the updates and such, but I will start to get back to those when I'm able to do so. I mean, I'll probably be every couple weeks or so, just because of all the campaigns and games and such that I'm doing with just this one group, where I'm kind of busy putting it all onto map tools. So it takes quite a long time to convert a lot of the creatures onto tokens with the specific macro commands and such. I mean, it's well worth it. It's fun for me. I don't mind doing it. I mean, they do just as much for me as I do for them, so give and take, and everyone enjoys it as well as me. So but yeah, that's all I got. I hope you enjoyed the Kappa, and feel free to introduce it into your world and change it however you wish. That's all I got. So thanks for your time. See ya.